All right, welcome everyone. It's great to see you today. Can you hear me? I'm hearing some background. Good. Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to my presentation today. I'm going to be discussing 5 simple ways to build generational wealth. And for today's agenda, we're going to go over those 5 simple ways, as well as I'm going to give you a free gift, and then I'll explain how I can help you as far as building generational wealth. And I'm going to end with a powerful message. Now, there is a lot that I'm going to cover. Normally, I do this in an hour. So, unfortunately, I won't have time for questions and answers, but please feel free to send me an email at info@expandingwallet.com if you do have any questions, or find me on LinkedIn or even Instagram at Mr. Generational Wealth. All right. So today's objectives is to discuss why we struggle to build wealth despite making 6 figures, as well as the 3 most important financial skills you need to master as soon as possible. And I just wanted to also just thank Dr. McCamey, a friend of mine, who invited me to speak at this today after we had met a year ago, before I even started really diving into a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today. So I hope that you will be educated, inspired, and empowered after listening to this discussion. All right. So just a quick disclaimer, this is for educational purposes only and does not represent legal or financial advice for your specific situation. So let me just tell you a little bit about me. I am Andrew Clarke, and I'm the CEO of Expanding Wallet. Now, I'm currently living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and my background is that, or my backstory is that my mom was a nurse, and she still is currently a nurse. And so I have a special place in my heart for nurses, so it's really an honor to be here with you all. And growing up, I watched my mom work over 100 hours a week for years. And she did this to support our family here in Minnesota, but also our family back in Jamaica. And my stepdad got really sick, so he couldn't work a lot of the time. Honestly, he would do odd jobs as a mechanic. And so he couldn't contribute much financially. And so my mom at times was working to support up to 8 people, 4 here and then family back home, the family that couldn't support themselves. So at 15 years old, I started to self-educate myself on how to manage and invest money, because I said there's got to be a better way to make money than just trading your time for dollars. And what I started to learn changed our lives. At 16, my mom actually, after talking with me on real estate and how important that was, she decided to get her license as a real estate agent. And so I started to understand through my mom the background of what happens with real estate on the MLS. And at 18, I decided I would get my real estate license right before going to college for my degree in biomedical engineering. Now, unfortunately, I got my license, my real estate license, in August of 2007. So right before the Great Recession. And it taught me a ton. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of what I had learned then with you today. But I ended up giving up my license in 2009 so I could focus on school and getting my degree. However, I never stopped learning. And at that time, I started to real estate gurus, guys that had been very ordinary guys, and they had amassed millions of dollars in real estate. Now, they also lost a lot too due to the Great Recession. But there were 3 things that I saw that they had done better than most people. And so I'm going to share those 3 today as well. But I'll tell you more about my story as we go through. But I want us to dive in right now and really get into it. The biggest thing that I guess people talk about with me is that I bought my first property at 24, only 9 months after graduating college. And the reason this stands out to a lot of people is because I was underpaid by 18%. And I also bought this property here in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, which has the highest gap between white homeowners and black homeowners in the entire country. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you today is life-changing information. And I don't even like to put together slides, but I know how important it is when you talk about numbers and finance to be able to see visuals. So I told myself no matter how hard it was going to be, I was going to put these slides together for you today, because what I'm going to teach you today can transform lives. So I'm really excited to get into this. So let's get going. All right. So in 2020, after seeing how many people were living paycheck to paycheck, I created the Expanding Wallet website to be a financially empowering resource with blog articles and YouTube videos. And this is just an image of the home page. Now, this year, I launched a financial course for future homeowners because I realized how important home ownership is to people. And my financial course actually helps people master these financial skills that I'm going to talk to you about today so that they can save thousands of dollars towards their first home and beyond. Now, I also coach people one-on-one as well, and I specifically do that with people who want to start investing in real estate or want to start their own business. So let's just talk about, what is generational wealth? And quite simply, generational wealth is just wealth that you can pass down to your children and to their children. And that's a picture of me and my mom right there. Now, Warren Buffett had said that if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, that you will work until the day you die. And so that's why the wealth building part is so important. And if you can't build wealth, how can you pass it on to anyone else and actually have generational wealth? So that's what we're going to be talking about, is the building wealth piece. So let's start off with, why do we struggle to build wealth? And if you're virtual, feel free to go ahead and use the chat, and you guys can kind of put in answers in there if you want to. And just, feel free again to kind of just use that chat. I'm probably not going to read any off. I normally do, but just for the interest of time, I'm not going to do that. So go ahead and put in your thoughts on that as far as why we struggle to build wealth. Now, one of the things that I had learned as a real estate agent that I had never even heard about or learned about in school was discriminatory practices in the real estate industry. These practices were redlining and steering. And this made it either almost impossible for Black people to own real estate, or it would dictate where they owned property. Okay. And this is significant because just think about the mental effect of just not being able to actually dictate where you would live or have control over where you're going to live. And another thing that this also does is it has effect on your education, because schools actually get a lot of their funding from property taxes. So again, this to me was a very big one, and I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. Now, this was a report that came out this year by CNBC, where they did a study and showed that last year in 2021, Black spending power had hit a record high, but net worth had fallen 14%. Okay, that is huge. So to have more spending power, but yet for your net worth to go down, that is not good. And I want to share a very quick story. Probably just touch on some of the key points from this story, but growing up, my mom had a friend who was also a nurse who started her own nursing agency. And just imagine if you start a business and you go from, making $50,000 to now like $500,000. That's just kind of the gauge of how successful this woman's business was when she started it. And unfortunately, one day she came over in tears, and this was the most successful person I knew at the time. Her family had like 2 brand new BMWs. They had a huge house, and she even had like a Louis Vuitton purse. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Is that, as far as what I could see, her life looked perfect to me. And so I was confused as to why she was crying, but why she was crying was because her business had slowed down. The income wasn't coming in like it had before. And unfortunately, she was drowning in debt, especially credit card debt. And so that taught me a big lesson at that time. I was really young, so this is before I started learning finances on my own. But I realized that you could have a high income. Things could look good on the outside, but you weren't necessarily financially secure. And she had bad financial habits even before the business. And so bad financial habits can follow you even when you're making more money. And she suffered from something that they call lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation just means as your income goes up, your spending goes up as well. So you're never really able to save much money, if at all. So that just highlights the importance of financial education. So I have a quick question for you all. You can answer this in your head if you're in person, or you can put it in the chat if you're virtual. How much do you think that banks collected in overdraft fees in 2020? And this question really just highlights the point I was making about the importance of financial education. And it does not include loan fees or interest charges. Now, I'll answer it in a little bit here, but we've got to talk about these three financial skills that you need to master as soon as possible. And they will have a huge effect, as you will see when I give you that number, on your financial future. And these three skills are what I had learned from those financial gurus as far as how were they able to be ordinary folks to accumulate millions of dollars in real estate so quickly. And these three are also what helped me when I was underpaid by 18%, be able to buy my first property, a duplex, within 9 months of graduating from college. Okay. And they are that you have to learn how to master managing money, debt, and credit. Okay. And so let's just answer this question really quick. So in 2020 alone, banks collected a total of $12 billion in overdraft fees. That's with a B. Okay. That doesn't include interest, loans, late fees, none of that. And so why that stands out is when you think about an overdraft fee, that's like a $30, $35 fee, right? But that adds up over time. And so, again, this is where we got to be able to manage our money. Understanding how much you have in your account is important. And then so is being able to, let me see here, being able to budget. Okay. And so why is budgeting important? We are constantly in a financial battle between living in the present and planning and preparing for the future. And a budget helps you to find the balance between the two. Okay. Being able to masterfully use a budget will help you tremendously when it comes to saving money. And I'll share how critical a budget was for me when I bought my first property. Now, the next foundational skill that I mentioned you have to master is being able to manage debt. Debt is just so easy to get into, especially in America, that it is important that you have strategies to get out of debt. And I don't have this slide in my deck anymore, but there was a study that was done from 1969 to 2019, a 50-year study, and that study showed that college tuition for an average 4-year degree, that it had actually outpaced household income by 7 times. Okay, so just getting degrees, and I'm sure all of you probably understand since you have a doctorate, the impact that tuition can have on your finances. All right, so the next one and the third is mastering managing credit. You can lose or even save thousands of dollars simply because of your credit score. And I can't think of a better example than a conversation I had with someone who had bought a brand new car at 8%. And when I said, that seems kind of high, she said, well, someone bought a car that I know at 20%. Now, this was years ago where car prices and interest rates weren't quite as high. But at 26, I bought my first car, my first brand new car. I had my old beater from high school for a while, but I bought my first brand new car for $34,000. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because at that time I had excellent credit and I was able to finance it at 0%. So just for you guys, I ran some numbers to see what would I have paid in interest if I had bought that same car at 8% interest. At 8% interest, I would have paid almost $6,000 towards interest alone. At 20% interest, I would have paid over $15,000. Okay, so for, that's almost half the price of the car. And I get the same car, but look at how much more I'm going to have to pay for that car. So I hope that you're understanding, and you probably already know most of this, right? But the impact that credit can have. And so the big question that I see a lot, and one thing that I work with clients on, is credit cards. Credit cards for many is an enemy. And for me personally, credit cards have actually been a blessing. Made and saved thousands of dollars simply by being able to use a credit card and never paying interest yet. Okay, I've never paid interest yet on a card. Hopefully it stays that way. But the key with credit cards is you have to know the game when it comes to credit cards. Okay, there's definitely things that credit card companies do that can get you stuck with very high interest rates. All right, so the reason I really wanted, let me just summarize that, but the reason I'm highlighting those is because those three are the main reason why many people are living paycheck to paycheck, why they struggle to even start to be able to buy assets to build wealth. Okay, so now from here, once you've built that financial foundation, okay, you've mastered those three, and now you're able to save money. Now we can really start looking into more assets that you can start buying or purchasing. Now, this first tip really doesn't necessarily, this first one doesn't necessarily matter so much as far as how much you can save. Now, it does matter, but as you'll see when we talk about putting money into tax deferred and tax advantage accounts, especially here through employer sponsored tax account or retirement accounts, your employer could actually pay for your retirement. Okay, that's what a SEP account does. Now, not too many employers have that. I was fortunate enough to actually have an employer that does have that. And that means the employer actually pays 100% of the money that goes towards your retirement. Okay. Now, you want to make sure that you have something going towards retirement. So 401k plans are very, very, very popular. And you can sometimes have matches with those. Now, the great thing about these is that your money can grow tax-free because that money goes in before you're ever taxed on it. The key thing is that once you retire and you start withdrawing that money, that's when it gets taxed. So what you see in that account is not what you're going to get when you retire because you still have to pay taxes. Now, the next account for retirement that you will want to have or at least know about is a Roth IRA. Okay, a Roth IRA is one that you fund on your own. So this is outside of your employer, and it's after taxes have been paid, right? And the taxes have already been paid because you paid taxes, and now that money is going directly into the retirement account. And what's nice about a Roth IRA is that typically there's no minimum amount. It really depends on the brokerage that the Roth IRA is opened up in. And there are some limitations with Roth IRAs, and this is really important for all of you as doctors. So there are some limitations, and they change every year. So you want to know these limitations. So this slide just shows some of those limitations as far as contributions, which is dependent on your age. But there is a way around the income limits. Now, as you can see, the income limits here is $144,000 if you're single and $214,000 if you're married. But the way around it is something known as a backdoor Roth. And you will want to work with your CPA as well as the brokerage company that has the Roth IRA in order to make sure that you're doing a backdoor Roth IRA properly. And sorry, there was a slide I had to take out, but the one thing I want to mention with a Roth, and this is really key here, the difference between your Roth IRA and how a 401k works is that with your Roth, because it was already taxed and you put that in there, when you go to retire, what you see in your Roth is what you get. So if you had $1 million in a Roth IRA and you pulled out that $1 million, you're not paying taxes on it again. Okay. Now, tip number 3. This is, to me, one of the most important ones. Invest in real estate. 90% of millionaires make their money through real estate. So my first property, like I had mentioned, I bought it at 24. Now, because I started to look at what these investors had done, I made sure that while I was in college and I was learning from them, I really started to master those skills. Being able to budget money was helpful. Being able to keep my debt low. So in college, that's what I focused on, was keeping my debt low. I didn't make a crazy amount of money, Again, real estate was slow. So at that time, I worked in a restaurant and I also worked in a research lab. So I kept my debt low and then I focused on increasing my credit score. And that's where a credit card had helped me out so much. So just to give you a few numbers here, why I was so adamant about buying a property after graduating was because we were starting to already come out of the Great Recession, and house prices had been increasing by about 11% a year. And on top of that, interest rates were coming down. They had peaked at about 6.7 in 2007, and so they were coming down drastically now that we had come out of the recession. So there was one big problem, and this is why I keep mentioning budgeting. I told you I was paid 18% than someone with my degree. And I took the job because it had that huge benefit, the set benefit, but it was also my dream job. I would get to travel as a software consultant all around the world. And so budgeting helped me save up enough to buy that property. And just keep in mind too that like the average raise is only 3 to 5%. So if house prices are going up 11%, you have to be able to drastically either increase your income or cut your expenses. So I ended up buying a duplex. And the reason I bought a duplex was that it allowed me to live on one side and collect rent from the other side while keeping my expenses relatively low. And now here's what I did that surprises a lot of people, but I borrowed money to renovate that duplex from a credit card. And I don't even want to say borrow, I just used it. It had a 0% promotional offer for 18 months. And I borrowed $18,000 from that card to renovate the property. And the reason was because I knew if I could pay that off, it would save me hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars in interest had I gone that route as opposed to getting a personal loan or wrapping the expenses into the mortgage. And I'll go through this slide in a minute, but I just want to say too, having the duplex actually helped me really become debt free. So 24, I buy the property. 2 years, I'm focused on paying off debt, right? Getting out of that credit card debt, also paying off my student loan. Now, I didn't have a ton of student loans. Like I said, I try to keep the debt as low as possible. But for those 2 years, I was basically just grinding to pay off those debts, and I did that. So here are some key reasons why I say that if you're going to buy your first property, I encourage you and recommend you to look into buying a multifamily property first, okay? Now, I mentioned collecting rent, which lowers your living expenses, but there are significant tax benefits with buying a multifamily as opposed to buying a single family home. So when I say single family home, that could just be a house, a townhouse, or a condo. And these benefits include being able to claim depreciation on the rental units and claiming expenses on the rental units, not the unit that you live in, okay, if you live in there. And the depreciation can reduce tax liability for up to 27 and a half years, okay, so long after you purchase that property. Now, the key here with buying, and this is what really helped me to buy that property, is that a multifamily home, with a multifamily home, you can use an FHA loan, just like you would on a single family home. So you can pay as little as 3.5% down. Now, the key is that you have to live in one of the units and you have to stay there for at least a year. And now I just want to give you the numbers from my purchase of that property. I bought the property for $170,000 at a 3.25% interest rate. I had to pay $6,500 in down payment and closing costs. Now that same property 9 years later is worth $425,000, okay? Now, even with conservative appreciation numbers, the property will be worth over $1 million by the time I retire, okay? So I want you just to think about this. I'm going to put all this together now, right? So imagine having a cash producing asset, significantly reducing your tax liability, and locking in your first $1 million towards retirement at only 24 years old. That's what I did. And this is why what I do is so important. Now, tip number 4 is get life insurance sooner than later. All right, life insurance can really do two main things, in my opinion. And remember, this is like my blueprint for me as far as creating generational wealth that I'm sharing with you. And life insurance, the way I look at it is it'll provide stability for you and your family if you pass away. The second thing, though, that life insurance can do for you is it can be a benefit to you while you are living. Okay. And now, not every policy has this. Some policies have what's known as a cash value, okay, which is cash you can actually access while you are alive. Now, the reason that for me this is so important and why I'm mentioning this is that your retirement accounts are tied a lot of times to the stock market. So I'm remembering back to what happened to many people who wanted to retire during the Great Recession. Stock market had dropped. Now they were stuck. They couldn't retire because all they had was 401ks or Roth IRAs. Their money was tied significantly to the stock market. The key is that with life insurance, with these cash values, many of what's known as a floor, meaning that if the stock market were to drop and you had a floor, let's say of zero, and a stock market drops to like negative 20%, which is actually around where we're at right now this year, you would actually not lose anything. You would just lose some money due to the fees that you have on the account, but not because of the stock market dropping. So this is huge because when you retire, let's say you're in that situation or you're going to retire, if you have enough money, cash value wise, you could potentially fill that gap where the market is down because you got a 401k and you pull money while it's down and you still got to pay taxes on that. That's going to be a significant ding for you as far as retirement and how long your money is going to last. So that's why to me insurance is very important. And here's why: the sooner the better. It takes time to accumulate that cash value. So it doesn't just jump up overnight. And for me, I ended up getting my insurance policy at 24 years old, a few months after buying the property. Now, it was really difficult, honestly, to afford that on top of everything else, but I knew the importance of it. And at that time, I was in the healthiest tier group. So I locked in the best possible rate for that policy for my entire life. All right, I'm running a little tight on time here, so I'm going to probably speed this up a little bit. But now that you've gotten a idea of what's needed in order to build the wealth, in order to pass it on, you're going to want to put it in a vehicle that is going to basically make it easy for your family to get that money and as much of it as possible. And one of the best ways is by doing that through a trust, okay? Now, a trust is actually probably of all these maybe the most complex thing you're going to have to think through. And you'll definitely, again, want to work with a great CPA and an attorney to do this. But the main benefits is that a trust will give you control of who gets what and when. And it potentially reduces the amount of taxes your beneficiaries will have to pay because the trust is actually a legal entity, such as an LLC or business. It'll have its own EIN number, and the trust can pay taxes on it. The key is that assets have to go into the trust, okay? So this could help your family achieve significant life events such as going to college, buying a house, or even starting a business. Now, my goal when I retire is to have enough passive income that I never have to sell the underlying assets, so stocks or real estate, whatever those assets may be, and income coming in will just fund my retirement, so real estate rent, stock dividends, insurance cash value, and I'll put all those assets into a trust, and that's what will be passed on. Now, I think I'm running out of time here. So this is a free ebook that I have for eliminating debt. I will drop this link in, and you all can grab that. And this is really for someone who's struggling with debt. Maybe you're wondering how you're going to get out of your student loan debt. So these are 7 strategies for eliminating debt. I'm giving it to you totally free just for attending. I know how difficult school can be, and to also get a PhD. I'm just proud of all of you. So also I'm going to give you another book. This is really on 5 strategies for generating wealth. So through real estate, there are multiple ways to make money through real estate. And so that's why I put this guide together as a resource as far as how you can get started to build that empire. I've got about, say I've got about 5 minutes here, so I'm gonna probably have to skip on maybe the closing message here, but I'll see how far I can get. Um, so just quick recap, we went over the 5 steps: build your foundation, master managing money, debt, and credit so that you can save more money, then put money into more assets. And putting money into tax deferred accounts is number 2. Number 3, invest in real estate. Number 4, get life insurance. The sooner the better. We never know when we're going to pass. Okay. And number 5 is set up a trust. Now, a quick little background is before I ever launched my course or working with people, I spent about a year just doing live workshops similar to this. I did Instagram lives and I also did informational interviews. And so there were 3 things that I found people lacked when it came to finances. The first was knowledge. Knowledge helps you make better decisions, and it's your decisions in life that will determine your destination. And many people had no strategy or plan. And Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you got to have some strategies and plans in place for your finances. And the third thing that people lacked, maybe the most important, was they didn't have systems or a system for helping them to manage their finances. And systems help you to implement strategies and stay on track with your financial goals. So, what did I do? I put together a course that has all 3: knowledge, systems, and strategies. Said those out of order, but you understand. And the focus of the course is to really help people master managing those 3: money, debt, and credit. And so what I do is that I work with people in a group setting. It's all online, so it doesn't matter where you are. And you can do this in 3 months. In 3 months, it can change your life. And you get lifetime access to on-demand videos that walk you through the system, educate you. And for 3 months, you get access to weekly reviews, where we review a section of the course and you can get your questions answered by me. And lastly, once a month, I put on a special workshop. It's usually a financial workshop where I bring in a special guest. This month, though, is a little different. I'm doing something on mindset and habits. Okay, I've come from the bottom in so many areas of my life to rise to the top. So I know what it feels like to be behind, and I also know what it takes to succeed. And so this workshop is going to be on 7 steps to succeeding. 7 steps for success. So I really designed this course with my mom in mind. Someone who was busy working all those hours, but how could I do something that she would get value from? Every single live workshop or weekly review is recorded and sent out in email. And if you have an hour a week, just 1 hour a week, it doesn't even matter. It could be split up into 15 minutes for 4 days. That's all it really requires to get a ton of value from the course. And the course price is $497, if you were wondering. Now, I also coach people one-on-one in real estate and business, as I had mentioned, because I've seen the good and the bad of real estate. At 27, I bought my second property through an LLC. And it looks like I have 1 more minute, but I bought my second property through an LLC. And unfortunately, it was a nightmare. It was a huge crook. And so it was 2 years to actually finish this project. And I don't want anybody to ever go through that. And on the business side, I built Expanding Wallet from the ground up. And I've been a software consultant and worked for billion-dollar companies for a long time now. And so with Expanding Wallet, learning how to manage a website, putting together a highly effective team, as well as how to generate business through social media. That's a big one that people want to learn. And it took me a while, but it's happening. If one-on-one coaching is something you're interested in, just email me. I don't have a ton of time to go into this since we're about done. But I just want to say, for me, This is really about purpose. Like I said, just knowing that the struggles that we have to go through. Um, not sure if I still have any more time here, but what I want to say is that, we had civil rights that dismantled many of the discriminatory practices that were making it hard for Black people to gain wealth. Okay. All right. So, Kimberly said, please close. All right. Let me do this. So, I have some client success stories. Um, if you want to hear these client success stories, just go to my website, expandingwallet.com, and you can click on new course. And these two videos, at least, are on the course website. This one, I literally got this text last Saturday, from a client who was struggling to save money. And she's on track to hit her goal of saving $5,000 for the year. So let me just do the close here. Thank you, Kimberly. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen here and just come off camera. Come on, camera. So sorry about kind of rushing this. Like I said, this is usually something that I would spend about an hour on, maybe even 90 minutes. So this close is really something that God put on my heart to share this message with you today. And it's something I've never actually shared publicly. So, here we go. George Floyd was actually murdered 20 minutes from where I live in Minneapolis. And his murder was a reminder of the work that we still need to do in this country. And I saw more division and destruction during that time than I had ever seen in my entire life. However, there was something else that I saw during that time. Many ordinary people stepped up and started leading food drives to help those whose local grocery stores had been burnt to the ground. And many of us, including myself, worked to clean up and help in rebuilding the city, despite us being in a pandemic. And it was unfortunate that it took a tragedy like that for us to come together in that way. And this made me realize that we need more great leaders. We need more great leaders like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, leaders who didn't divide but united, leaders who didn't tear you down but built you up. And when I realized that, my purpose was clear, that I had to step up and be a leader so that I could help in developing great leaders. And the reason for this is that I know that I am truly blessed to be where I am today, because I know what it feels like to be behind, and I also know what it takes to succeed. I was behind in school when I was young. By a full year at one point, I was behind in reading. But I graduated with a biomedical engineering degree, and at that time, my faculty advisor told me it was the hardest degree at the University of Minnesota because it had a 54% dropout rate. And honestly, I probably wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for one special person. I was in special education for 2 years, and this special ed teacher not only believed in me, but she helped me excel in reading, and most importantly, helped me unlock my ability to learn. I don't even know that I would have had the confidence or belief that I could teach myself personal finances at 15 if it wasn't for her. So you already know that I was paid 18% less than someone with my degree, and still bought that first property in Minneapolis, where we have the most gap between white and Black races when it comes to home ownership. By the way, it's like a 51% gap if you're curious. And I was the youngest and least experienced at that job. They didn't even hire a college graduate in 8 years. So I was the first fresh college graduate in 8 years. But by my second year, I was helping lead the development team on the company's flagship product. And by my third year, I negotiated a 30% raise. And every single year after that, I've received double-digit raises. And I'm telling you this because you have to know your worth so that you can remind those who are likely to forget. Very important. And I knew that every single challenge that I've ever faced and every obstacle that I've ever overcome had built me to do this. But I still had to face one more challenge, and that was my fear of public speaking. And the man above came through. He put some world class speakers in my path, like Deirdre Van Ness and Mr. Les Brown himself, the best speaker in history, to train me on public speaking. And even though I'm not where I want to be, public speaking wise, I'm definitely not where I used to be. And while the mission with Expanding Wallet is to teach skills for creating generational wealth, my purpose is much bigger. I want to develop great leaders with skills in personal finance, business, and communication. I believe that our families and communities and even the world needs more leaders like this. Leaders who understand the struggles of a single parent and leaders who can see the gaps in our educational system around finances and entrepreneurship, and leaders who are willing to do what's right, even when it's not the popular thing to do. And like I said before, I created Expanding Wallet to transform lives. Right now, the focus is on personal finances, but this is only the beginning. And all of you, to me, are leaders. And knowing how difficult education was for me and the struggles that I had with education, it's such an honor to be speaking to doctors who've achieved the highest form of education there is, and you look like me. And you all are trailblazers for your family, I'm sure. You might be the first doctoral graduate in your family, or even maybe the first college graduate, period. Your family looks up to you. And if for no one else, continue to be a leader for them. Given how difficult things were for me, like I said, it's just an honor to be here. And it will be an honor to work with you, whether it's in the course or one on one. And again, feel free to connect with me, whether on LinkedIn, on social media, whatever it may be, or email. But just be patient if you do want to work one on one. Obviously, it will take me a while to get back to you via email if there's a lot of you that email me. And what I was saying about the civil rights is that we had the civil rights movement that banned many discriminatory practices that stood in our way. And now we are in the empowerment movement. And Expanding Wallet is the home for empowerment. And it is time that you take control of your finances and your future. What I teach will transform lives for generations to come. And it's important that you continue to learn, believe, and grow so you can be the great leaders that our families and communities need. My name is Andrew Clarke, and I hope that you were educated, inspired, and empowered today. Let's rise together.